The Earthlings are a race in the Dragon Ball universe that have the potential to wield tremendous power, and it isn't until the Frieza saga where the Earthlings begin to be power crept and eventually left behind. And throughout the series, the Earthlings slow down in their training and eventually some of them stop. But what if, rather than slowing down when they did, they instead pushed themselves and took advantage of everything they could get their hands on? How strong could they get? I for one love the characters in this series, and it always pains me to see them thrown to the sidelines, so in this video, I'm looking to push the Earthlings to their limits and break them. But besides the Earthlings, who do you guys think is the most wasted character or characters in the Dragon Ball verse? Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha have been shown to be able to gain a considerable amount of strength early in the series. This can be seen when they train with Kami in preparation for the Saiyans, where they gain a 7 to 8 times increase in power, and mind you, this is in the span of a year. Comparing this to Goku's 3-year training with Kami in preparation for Piccolo, Goku only gained a 1.4 times increase in power. Although I will say the type of training they did was different, it's still impressive that they gained this much power compared to Goku, and shows us, the audience, that they have the potential for great jumps in power. Aside from Zenkai boost and transformations, it would seem as if the Earthlings can benefit just as much from training as a Saiyan would, obviously to a smaller degree due to Zenkai boost and genetic reasons. Starting off with the Saiyan saga, there aren't many advantages that they could use, seeing as they use their best option in terms of training, that being Kami. So for this part, they'll remain the same strength. The first missed opportunity would be when Yamcha and Tien arrive on King Kai's planet a month after their deaths. Yamcha was there for 137 days, while Tien spent 265 days there. Compare this to Goku's 98 days, and you can see that they didn't use their time as wisely as they could have. During that time, they took advantage of the planet's 10 times gravity while they were training, but neither of them bothered to learn any techniques from the Kaio, most notably the Kaio-Ken. Now, if they took the time to ask or even plead King Kai to teach them, I'm pretty sure that he would. With the Kai's technique in hand and the rigorous training that they would put themselves through, by the time they are wished back, Yamcha would be 20 times stronger and Tien would be 40 times stronger. I say that because we know that Goku got 20 times stronger with the same training. However, unlike the Earthlings, Goku had to learn the Spirit Bomb, which would have taken time away from his strength training. So it can be safe to say, with them purely focusing on strength and the Kaio-Ken, this would be the outcome. Yamcha, with the use of a Kaio-Ken times 3, would rival Goku's power at the beginning of the Namek arc. Tien, on the other hand, would surpass that power with a simple Kaio-Ken. This is due to him spending more time on the Kai's planet and taking advantage of it. Although this isn't impressive right now, this is just a small part in the bigger picture. Hopefully, right? The second and third missed opportunities are not utilizing any form of gravity training and not training with someone of similar strength. After being on a planet with 10 times gravity and seeing how it helped them tremendously, trying to recreate an environment that pushes their physical bodies would be the next logical step in their training. Unfortunately, they don't do any of this. Rather, they train like they used to. Now, if they did decide to utilize gravity training, luckily they should be aware of something that can help them with that on Earth. This is due to the conversation that they had with Goku while he was on his way to Namek. So, using this information, I'm pretty sure they would eventually find out that Bulma and her father could whip them up a gravity room. So, with the second missed opportunity covered, let's move on to the next. It is common knowledge in the Dragon Ball verse that you get substantially stronger when you train with another person, especially if they're on your level or stronger. After being revived, the Earthlings train by themselves, the exception being Tien, who had Chaozu, but we all know that Chaozu isn't on the same level as Tien. The simple fix to this is obviously have them train with each other. So with a brand new gravity room in hand and training with partners looking to push themselves, I believe that within the time that they were revived to the time that the androids arrived, they would have slightly surpassed post-Zenkai boost base Goku that faced Frieza, which I don't think is too much of a stretch. I mean, Goku literally gained that strength in like one day, so 4 years for the Earthlings seem fair. That and the fact that they're using the same exact training that Vegeta used to close the gap between his base power and Goku's helps this claim. On top of that, they're training with people of similar strength, which helps. But with that out the way, I would say that they would also increase their Kaio-Ken multiplier. Tien and Yamcha at 10 times easily. However, since we don't know if the Kaio-Ken can be taught by anyone other than King Kai, I can't say that Krillin would have access to it. Regardless, his strength would still rival the others, in their base. This increase in power wouldn't have too many changes to the story as a whole, the most notable being Yamcha wouldn't have been turned into a donut by Android 20, and during the fight with Android 17, I can see the Earthlings catching the android off guard, not because they pose a threat, but just due to their massive increase in power, alongside with the Kaio-Ken. And aside from that, Tien would be able to hold off Perfect Cell much longer. However, even with these boosts in power, they pale in comparison to the Super Saiyan form. The fourth missed opportunity was not using the Room of Spirit in time. We know that Tien at least knew about the room during the Cell arc when he was rescued by Goku. On top of that, we know that when Goku and Gohan emerged from the room, there were 9 days left before the Cell games. Within this time, Piccolo, Vegeta, and Trunks entered the room, meaning that by the time they were all done, 6 days were left. If Tien had decided to use the room, then he should have gotten in contact with both Krillin and Yamcha while the others were using the chamber. And once everyone was done, the Earthlings would have time to go in there twice. The first day would go to Krillin and Tien, then a day of rest since you have to wait a day before you go back in. The third day would go to Krillin and Yamcha, completing Krillin's 2 years in the chamber, another rest day, and the fifth day would go to Tien and Yamcha, completing both of their 2 years in the chamber. Taking advantage of the Room of Spirit and Time with each other, I do believe this is where they would close the gap between their base power and the Saiyans. I say this because in Dragon Ball and even early Dragon Ball Z, the Earthlings were usually pretty close to Goku in terms of his base power. It isn't until Goku begins to use gravity training where the gaps in their bases widen to an extreme extent. However, in this scenario, they've taken advantage of everything at this point, including gravity training, using it as efficiently as they can as well, while Goku and Vegeta on the other hand didn't or couldn't. For example, Goku spent 3 years with people he had to train up to his level, which hindered his process, and the same thing happens in the chamber. Vegeta on the other hand only trains by himself, not taking advantage of the benefits that come with training with others, and while in the chamber, strictly focuses on a new form rather than increasing his base power as much as possible. So with the Earthlings being able to focus on their strength alone and only having to rely on their base forms, I do believe this would be the outcome. So with this, who could they take on? Well, I believe it's safe to say at this point with the use of the Kaio-Ken, they would be able to take on the likes of Android 19 and 20 and defeat them with some difficulty. Even after all this, the Earthlings would still lag behind due to the multiplier the Super Saiyan forms provide. The fifth missed opportunity was not training over the 7 years. Over this gap in time, the Earthlings all but give up on fighting. Krillin with a new family and Yamcha doing Yamcha things. Tien was the only one who continued, but he only did the training that he was doing ever since Dragon Ball, which does nothing for his growth in any meaningful capacity. Now, I understand why Krillin stopped, and for that reason, I'll say that he slows his training down because he has a good reason to. So, for the next 7 years, if the Earthlings had continued training as efficiently as they could, by the time the Buu Saga started, I'd say that Tien and Yamcha would have tapped into Kaio-Ken times 20, and would have been able to take on the likes of Semi-Perfect Cell with some difficulties, which puts them leagues ahead of where they used to be. Krillin without the use of Kaio-Ken would probably be able to take on the androids with some difficulties, but that's all I really have for this part. The last missed opportunity was not getting the Mystic form. Now, the way that I've been making these points is that these were opportunities that the Earthlings should have known about, but they didn't take advantage of. But the thing is, we don't know if they knew about this form. If we're going off to the fact that they did know, then there were ways that they could have gotten it. They could have asked Gohan about it, where he got it, how he got it, etc. Then using this information, get Goku to bring them to the Supreme Kai's planet, bribe the old man with some dirty magazines, and boom, they have it. Once they have this form, how strong would they get? Unlike the Super Saiyan forms, which are static power multipliers, Mystic unlocks the user's potential while it is activated. And the thing about potential is, it differs from person to person. Gohan goes from being on par with or weaker than Goku's base to being stronger than him in Super Saiyan 3, letting us know that when he uses Mystic, he's getting 400 to 500 times stronger, possibly even higher, and later in Super, his Mystic form grants him even more strength. With the Earthlings, however, they don't have that much potential, and it's hard to say how much they would get if they use this form. So let's go off of the one and only time that an Earthling got their potential unlocked, that being Krellin during the Frieza Saga. Krellin goes from 2500 at the start of the saga to 75,000 after his potential is unlocked fully, giving him a 30 times increase in power. If we use this, then we can say that every time they use the Mystic Form, they gain a 30 times increase, which isn't crazy compared to someone like Gohan, but hey. Now, I believe it's safe to say that the Mystic Form can be used with the Kaio-Ken. This is because the Mystic Form doesn't put any strain on the user like the Super Saiyan forms. With this in hand, the Earthlings would go into Dragon Ball Super on par with the likes of Super Saiyan 3 Goku. This is because the only problem that the Earthlings had was not having access to a multiplier on par with Super Saiyan 1, 2, and 3. If we're going off the fact that the Mystic Form for the Earthlings grant a 30 times increase, then with the use of a Kaio-Ken times 10, they'd be 300 times stronger. And I for one believe that the Earthlings could have kept up with the Saiyan's base if they actually tried. And if you add this to the picture, then they'd be able to keep up with their Super Saiyan forms. Now with that being said, I'm not going to hop into Dragon Ball Super as that is a whole nother headache, and I'll just leave it here. But thank you to everyone that watched this video. Hope you have a good day. Peace, peace. Deuce, deuce.